The last thing my mother said to me before I walked out of that restaurant was, "You're his sister. You're supposed to sacrifice for family." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I looked at my father. Then at my brother, who was sitting between them like a man who had just been handed another opportunity he had done absolutely nothing to earn. And for the first time in my life, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg them to understand. I simply stood up, picked up my purse, and said 6 words that changed my entire family forever. Then sacrifice someone else this time. I walked out. What they didn't know was that I wasn't just walking away from dinner. I was walking away from 10 years of being the child they only remembered when my brother needed something. And I was taking one secret with me. A secret that, if they ever discovered it, would make them realize just how badly they had underestimated me. My name is Claire Bennett, and for most of my life I thought being the responsible daughter was something to be proud of. I was wrong. In my family, being responsible simply meant everyone knew exactly who they could use when things went wrong. My younger brother Ryan had always been different. Ryan was charming. Ryan was confident. Ryan could walk into a room 5 minutes late, apologize with a smile, and somehow make everyone feel guilty for being annoyed with him. I was the opposite. I showed up early. I kept promises. I worked hard. And when something went wrong, I didn't look for someone to blame. I fixed it. My parents loved that about me. Or at least, that's what I used to think. When Ryan was 17, he wrecked my father's truck. My father told everyone it was an accident. When Ryan dropped out of college, my mother told everyone he was finding himself. When Ryan started a landscaping business and lost almost all of his savings within 8 months, my parents called it a learning experience. When he opened a second business and closed it less than a year later, they said the economy was difficult. Every failure had an explanation. Every mistake had an excuse. And every time Ryan needed rescuing, my parents looked at me. I remember one night especially. I was 27 years old, sitting at my kitchen table with a laptop open in front of me. I had just received an email offering me a promotion. It wasn't some life-changing executive position, but it was the first time in my career I'd been offered a management role. I was proud. I called my mother. "Mom, I got promoted." There was silence. Then she said, "That's wonderful, honey." I smiled. "Thank you." Another pause. Then she asked, "Do you have about $8,000? My smile disappeared. "What?" "For Ryan." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "Mom, what happened?" "His business account is frozen." "Why?" "It's complicated." Whenever my mother said something was complicated, it usually meant Ryan had done something stupid and nobody wanted to tell me the truth. "How much does he need?" $8,000. "I don't have $8,000. You have savings." I stared at my laptop screen. "Yes, for my future." She sighed. "Claire, don't make everything about money." I remember that sentence because I still think about it. Don't make everything about money. As if Ryan's mistakes weren't costing me money. As if my savings had somehow become family property. As if my future was less important simply because I was better at protecting it. I said no that night. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. 3 days later, my father called. He didn't ask how work was going. He didn't congratulate me on the promotion. He said, "Your brother is going through a difficult time." I knew what was coming. I can't help him financially. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're his sister. And he's an adult. My father's voice hardened. You've become very selfish. That hurt. More than I wanted to admit. Because I had spent my entire childhood trying to be the opposite of selfish. I was the daughter who babysat Ryan when my parents went out. I was the one who gave him my old laptop. I was the one who helped him write his college applications. I was the one who drove across town at midnight when his car broke down. And somehow saying no once made me selfish. Ryan eventually found the money somewhere else. My parents never told me where. And I decided to let it go. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 2 years later, Ryan came up with another idea. He wanted to open a specialty coffee shop. I remember sitting at my parents' dining table while he explained his vision. He had charts, a business plan, a presentation on his laptop. For once, I was impressed. Maybe he'd finally grown up. Maybe this was different. He said the location was perfect. He said there was almost no competition. He said he had investors interested. Then my father looked at me. I knew immediately. "What?" I asked. My mother smiled. "We thought you could help him with the financial side." I looked at Ryan. He shrugged. "You're good with numbers." I was good with numbers because I'd spent years working for everything I had. But I nodded. "Okay, I'll review the business plan." That night, I found 27 problems in it. Not small problems, major ones. The projected rent was wrong. The insurance estimate was unrealistic. The staffing budget was too low. And the biggest problem was that Ryan had underestimated the cost of equipment by almost 40%. I told him. He didn't listen. Instead, he said, "You're being too negative." 3 months later, the coffee shop opened. 6 months later, it was struggling. 9 months later, Ryan was asking my parents for money again. And my parents were asking me to help. I didn't give him money. But I spent evenings helping him restructure expenses. I created spreadsheets. I renegotiated vendor contracts. I contacted suppliers. I even helped him build a delivery system. I was doing work he should have been paying someone to do. But I didn't complain. Because I still believed family meant helping each other. Then one evening, Ryan called me. "Claire, I need you to come down to the shop." "Why?" I screwed something up. I closed my eyes. "What did you do?" "Just come." When I arrived, he was standing behind the counter with a stack of invoices. He looked terrified. "What happened?" He handed me the papers. The shop was nearly $70,000 in debt. I looked at him. "How?" "I don't know." That was Ryan's favorite answer. "I don't know." I spent the next 3 hours going through everything. And I found the problem. Ryan had been ordering supplies far above what the business needed. Thousands of dollars of unnecessary inventory were sitting in storage. He had also been paying himself a salary he couldn't afford. I confronted him. "You've been taking money out of the business every month. I have bills. So does the business." He became angry. "You don't understand what it's like." I stared at him. "What it's like?" "Yes." "You think I don't have bills?" "That isn't what I said." "No, you just think everyone should save you from yours." He walked away. I thought that conversation would finally change something. Instead, 2 weeks later, my parents called me. They wanted me to quit my job. I thought I had misheard them. "Quit?" My mother said, "Temporarily." "For what?" "To help Ryan full-time." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes your brain laughs when reality becomes too absurd to process. "Mom, I have a career." "You can find another job later." "Why should I?" "Because Ryan needs you." I looked out my apartment window. Cars moved through the street below. People were going home, living their own lives, building their own futures. And I realized my parents were asking me to throw mine away to protect his. "I can't do that." My father said, "You can." "No. You're choosing yourself over your family." "Yes." It was the first time I'd ever said it. And it felt strange. Almost freeing. I expected another argument. Instead, my father said something that stayed with me. "Fine, we'll remember this." I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. 3 months later, Ryan's coffee shop closed. He lost the business. My parents were devastated. But not because they had lost money. They were devastated because Ryan was embarrassed. They drove him to my apartment. The three of them stood outside my door. My mother hugged him. My father looked at me. "You need to help him start over." I said nothing. Ryan looked at me. "Claire?" I waited. "I have another idea." Of course he did. He wanted to start a digital marketing company. He had no experience in digital marketing. No clients. No employees. No capital. But he had an idea. And my parents loved it. I told them I wouldn't be involved. That was when my mother started crying. She said I had changed. She said success had made me cold. She said I wasn't the daughter she'd raised. I wanted to tell her the truth. Success hadn't changed me. Being constantly disappointed had. But I didn't. I simply said, "I'm sorry," and walked away. For the next year, I focused on my career. Something unexpected happened. My work started getting noticed. I received another promotion. Then another. My salary increased. I moved into a better apartment. I traveled. I built savings. I started investing. And for the first time, I was beginning to build a life that didn't revolve around fixing Ryan's problems. Then, one Tuesday morning, my boss called me into his office. He closed the door. I thought I was in trouble. Instead, he handed me a folder. "We're opening a new regional office." I looked at him. We want you to lead it. I couldn't speak. The position came with a substantial raise, a company car, relocation support, and something even more valuable: authority. For the first time, people would report to me. I accepted. That evening, I called my parents. My mother answered. "Hi, sweetheart." "Mom, I have news." She sounded excited. "What happened?" I told her. There was silence. Then she said, "That sounds wonderful." I smiled. "Thank you." Then she asked, "When are you moving?" "About 6 weeks." "Oh." Her voice changed. "That's a problem." "What?" "Your father and I were hoping you'd be around." "For what?" She hesitated. "Ryan is starting another business." I closed my eyes. "Of course." "What kind?" "A home renovation company." I almost laughed. Ryan had never renovated anything in his life. But I already knew what was coming. "He needs your help." "No?" My mother's voice became sharp. "You haven't even heard what we were going to ask." "I know." "You're being unreasonable." "No, Mom, I'm finally being reasonable." She hung up. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. 4 days later, I received an email from Ryan. Subject: family meeting, important. I almost deleted it. Instead, I opened it. He wrote that everyone needed to meet at our parents' favorite restaurant on Saturday evening. He said it was important. He said he wanted to discuss his future. I almost didn't go. But something inside me wanted closure. Maybe I needed to hear them say it one final time. Maybe I needed to see whether anything had changed. So I went. When I arrived, my parents were already there. Ryan sat between them. The arrangement alone told me everything. They weren't sitting across from him. They were sitting with him. I sat opposite them. My father ordered drinks. Nobody mentioned my promotion. Nobody congratulated me. Ryan opened a folder. "I've been working on something." He pushed a business plan toward me. I didn't touch it. "What do you want?" He looked offended. "Can't we just talk?" "We're here because you said it was important." My mother reached across the table. "Your brother has an opportunity." I stared at her. "Of course he does." She ignored the sarcasm. "A private investor is willing to fund his renovation company." "Good. But there's a condition." I already knew. "They need someone with financial experience to oversee the operation." I said nothing. My father leaned forward. "We want you to do it." I actually smiled. Not because I was happy. Because I couldn't believe we were having the same conversation again. I accepted a new position. "You can do both," my father said. "No." "It would only be temporary." "No." "Claire." "No." My brother finally spoke. "Why are you making this so difficult?" I looked at him. "Because I'm tired." He frowned. Tired of what? I laughed softly. You. The table went silent. My mother whispered my name. But I continued. I've spent years helping you. Every time something goes wrong, I'm expected to fix it. Every time you make a mistake, I'm expected to sacrifice something. Ryan shook his head. You're exaggerating. Am I? Yes. Then tell me I'm wrong. He said nothing. I looked at my parents. Tell me I'm wrong. My father crossed his arms. You're being emotional. There it was. The word they always used when I said something they didn't want to hear. Emotional. Difficult. Selfish. Unreasonable. Never right. My mother reached for my hand. Claire, family isn't about keeping score. I slowly pulled my hand away. No. I looked directly into her eyes. Family isn't supposed to make one person keep losing. Her face fell. Then Ryan said the sentence that ended everything. You've always been jealous of me. I stared at him. Jealous? Yes. My father nodded. I think there may be some truth to that. I felt something inside me go completely quiet. All the anger, all the sadness, all the years of trying to earn their approval. Gone. I suddenly understood. They weren't going to change. Not because they couldn't. Because they didn't want to. Ryan was their favorite. And I was their safety net. They didn't need me to succeed. They needed me to remain available. I stood up. My mother looked alarmed. Where are you going? I picked up my purse. Home. We're not finished. Yes, we are. My father slammed his hand against the table. You're walking out on your family? I looked at him. No. I took a breath. I'm walking away from being treated like the family emergency fund. Nobody spoke. I turned toward the door. Then my mother shouted, If you walk out now, don't expect us to come begging you later. I stopped. I turned around. And for the first time, I smiled. Mom, that's the first thing you've said tonight that I believe. Then I walked out. But there was something they didn't know. Something I had kept hidden for almost a year. And that secret was about to change everything. The investor funding Ryan's new company wasn't a stranger. I knew exactly who it was. Because 6 months earlier, my company had been approached by a private investment group looking for businesses with growth potential. I had been part of the evaluation team. One of the investors had reviewed Ryan's previous business history. They rejected him. Not because of his personality. Not because of his family. Because the numbers were terrible. The investor had actually asked me a question. Do you know this man? I said yes. He's my brother. The investor looked surprised. Then he said something I never forgot. Your brother has potential, but he doesn't have discipline. I didn't defend Ryan. I simply said, that's accurate. The investor then asked me something else. Would you ever invest your own money in his company? I said no. That answer ended the conversation. But there was more. The investment group had later approached me privately. They wanted me to build a consulting division focused on struggling small businesses. They offered me a partnership. I accepted. I hadn't told my parents. I hadn't told Ryan. And I certainly hadn't told them that the new company I was moving to lead wasn't just another corporate job. I was becoming a partner. I was going to be responsible for helping companies rebuild, including companies that made the mistakes Ryan had made. That meant something else. I knew exactly what would happen if Ryan received that investment. He would fail. Not because he was incapable of success, but because he still believed someone else would catch him when he fell. And I was no longer going to be that person. 2 weeks after the restaurant incident, Ryan's new company launched. My parents were thrilled. They posted pictures online. "Proud parents," my mother wrote. "Ryan is finally living his dream." I saw the post. I didn't comment. Then I received a message from my father. "You could still be part of this." I replied, "No." He responded, "You'll regret turning your back on your brother." I wrote back, "I already regret how long I stayed." He never replied. For the next several months, I built my new life. The move was difficult. My new position demanded everything from me. But I loved it. For the first time, when I solved a problem, it was my problem. When I succeeded, it was my success. And when I made a mistake, I owned it. There was no Ryan. No family crisis. No late-night phone call. No guilt. Then, one Friday afternoon, my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "Hello?" She was crying. "Claire." My heart tightened. "What happened?" "Your brother's company is in trouble." I closed my eyes. "What kind of trouble?" "Debt." "How much?" She gave me the number. I didn't say anything. It was enormous. "How did this happen?" She started explaining. The same story. Clients hadn't paid. Costs were higher than expected. A contractor had quit. Equipment had been damaged. I listened. Then she said, "He needs you." "No." "Please." "No." "Claire, he's your brother. He's an adult. He's going to lose everything." I looked around my office. Sunlight came through the windows. My name was on the glass door outside. Claire Bennett. Partner. I remembered the woman I had been 10 years earlier. The daughter who thought love meant sacrifice. The daughter who believed saying no made her bad. I wasn't her anymore. "Mom." She went quiet. "I love you." She started crying harder. "But I can't save Ryan anymore." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're the only person who can help." "No." "Why?" "Because if I keep rescuing him, he'll never learn to save himself." She whispered, "He'll hate you." I answered, "He already does." Then I hung up. For 3 weeks, there was silence. Then Ryan called. I almost didn't recognize his voice. He sounded different. Less confident. More frightened. Claire? Hi. Can we talk? Yes. I screwed up. I didn't respond. I really screwed up. I know. You know? Mom told me. He sighed. I need your help. I stared at the city outside my office. What kind? I need money. No. Please. No. Just hear me out. I already did. You don't understand. I understand. He became quiet. Then he said, Why do you hate me? That question surprised me. I don't hate you. You act like you do. I don't. Then why won't you help me? Because helping you has never actually helped you. He said nothing. I continued. For years, I thought I was helping you, but every time I fixed your problems, you simply created another one. That isn't fair. It isn't supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be honest. He took a breath. Then he said, Mom and Dad always chose me. I froze. I hadn't expected him to say it. What? They always chose me. His voice cracked. I knew it. For the first time in my life, my brother admitted it. I knew they would always take my side. I didn't know what to say. He continued. And I took advantage of it. Silence. Why? Because I could. That hurt more than anything. Not because he was cruel. Because he was honest. I thought you'd always be there. I closed my eyes. I was. I know. Until I wasn't. I know. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Ryan said, I don't know what to do now. I answered honestly. Neither do I. But you're good at this. Yes. Can you at least tell me what I should do? That was the first thing he'd asked me that didn't involve money. So I helped. Not financially. Professionally. I told him what numbers to look at. Which contracts to renegotiate. Which expenses to cut. Which clients to prioritize. I gave him the same advice I gave other struggling business owners. Nothing more. Nothing less. He followed some of it. Ignored some of it. But slowly things improved. 6 months later, Ryan's company wasn't thriving. But it was alive. And for the first time, he was running it himself. My parents eventually stopped calling me about him. They still favored him. I knew that wouldn't change overnight. But something else had changed. They stopped expecting me to rescue him. And I stopped expecting them to treat me fairly. That was the real freedom. A year after that dinner, I returned to my hometown for Thanksgiving. I wasn't sure I wanted to go. But I decided I wasn't going to let my family determine whether I could walk into my own childhood home. When I arrived, my mother opened the door. She hugged me. My father shook my hand. Ryan was already there. He looked different. Older. Calmer. He smiled. Hey, Claire. Hey. Dinner was awkward at first. Then my father raised his glass. I want to say something. Everyone looked at him. He looked at me. For years, I thought Claire was the difficult one. My mother looked down. Ryan stared at his plate. My father continued. I thought she was selfish because she wouldn't always do what we asked. He took a breath. I was wrong. I didn't know what to say. He looked directly at me. We chose Ryan over you more times than I want to admit. My eyes burned. My mother reached across the table. We did. Ryan nodded. You deserved better. I looked at him. There was no anger in his face. No jealousy. Just regret. I took a slow breath. I deserve to be your daughter. My mother started crying. You were. No. I shook my head gently. I was the daughter who was expected to understand. She nodded. And Ryan was the son who was allowed to make mistakes. Nobody argued. Because there was nothing left to argue about. My father whispered, Can you forgive us? I looked around the table. I thought about every birthday when Ryan received the expensive gift and I received an apology for the budget being tight. Every time he failed and everyone blamed circumstances. Every time I succeeded and nobody asked how hard it had been. Every phone call. Every sacrifice. Every time I had swallowed my feelings because I thought family came first. Then I realized something. Forgiveness didn't mean pretending it never happened. It meant refusing to let it control the rest of my life. Yes, I said. My mother cried harder. But, I continued, forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going back. My father looked confused. Back to what? I smiled. To being the person everyone calls when Ryan needs saving. Ryan actually laughed. Fair. Everyone laughed. Even my father. And for the first time, it didn't feel forced. It felt real. After dinner, Ryan followed me outside. We stood in the driveway beneath the cold evening sky. He said, You know something? What? You were right. I smiled. About what? I needed to fail. I looked at him. He continued. I hated you for walking away. I know. But if you hadn't, I'd still be blaming everyone else. I nodded. Maybe. He smiled. You really weren't going to give me money, were you? No. Not even if I'd begged? No. He laughed. Good. We stood there quietly. Then he said, I'm proud of you. Those words hit me harder than any apology. Because I had spent years waiting to hear them. But strangely, I didn't need them anymore. I smiled. Thanks. Then I drove away. As I watched my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror, I realized something I wish I'd understood years earlier. Sometimes walking away isn't revenge. Sometimes it's the first act of self-respect. I didn't destroy my family. I didn't steal from them. I didn't expose their secrets. I didn't try to make Ryan fail. I simply stopped allowing their choices to become my responsibility. For years, my parents chose my brother. They chose him when he failed. They chose him when he lied. They chose him when he made terrible decisions. And every time they chose him, they expected me to stay, to understand, to sacrifice, to forgive. But eventually, there comes a moment when you realize that being the good daughter shouldn't require becoming invisible. So I walked away. And that was the first time my family finally had to face the consequences of their own choices. Not because I punished them, because I stopped protecting them from reality. And strangely enough, that was what finally gave Ryan the chance to become the man they always believed he could be. As for me, I built a life where I didn't have to compete with my brother for love. I built a career where my achievements belonged to me. I learned that saying no doesn't make you selfish. And I learned that sometimes the strongest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's becoming completely independent from the approval of the people who once made you feel worthless without it. My parents chose my brother again. So this time I chose myself. And I never looked back.